What's up guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg with my top smartphones of 2014. So it's been a very busy year with many great flagship phones introduced, and I've kind of weeded it down to my top 7. Originally it was supposed to be top 5, but I had a really hard time eliminating some of my top picks. So these are the phones I would happily use as my daily driver. In fact, I did over the year. Now what I consider to be a good phone differs from what others do, so obviously these are my personal opinions, but I place highest priority on camera quality, display quality and size, battery life, and software experience. Now, if any phone lags in any of these categories, they did not make my list. So I tend to favor larger phones, whether the phone actually uses that screen real estate or not, just because the screen is much easier for me to use, especially with on-screen keyboards. For number 7, I've chosen the OnePlus One, which proves you can make a great flagship smartphone at nearly half the cost of the competition for basically budget phone pricing. Now, admittedly, this phone almost did not make the cut, mostly because it's very difficult to purchase with that now infamous invite system. But once you get your hands on the OnePlus One, it's a shockingly good phone, even if you ignore the impossibly low $299 price point, especially for a fairly new and unknown manufacturer. Now, it's equipped with a fantastic and fairly large 5.5-inch 1080p display with an excellent 13-megapixel 4K camera on the back. But perhaps the two biggest reasons I love this phone is the software and the battery life. Now, the OnePlus One is powered by CyanogenMod 11S, which is one of my favorite versions of Android, which gives you plenty of useful features and customization options, all while preserving a near-stock Android experience, which contributes to some of the best battery performance on the phone I've seen this year. I'm also a big fan of the sandstone texture on the back of the black phone, which makes the phone very nice to handle and nearly impossible to drop. So it's actually really nice to use a phone without a case for once. Now, although the One doesn't have the best camera or the best display on the list, the combination of great software and solid design makes this phone a standout for 2014, even before you consider the pricing. For number 6, I've chosen the HTC One M8 Google Play Edition, which is one of the first phones to be introduced in 2014. So the M8 stands out for its beautiful and solid, all aluminum design, which makes it one of the best looking and best built phones of 2014. We also have a bright and sharp 5-inch 1080p LCD display, although it is the smallest display on any of the phones I'm reviewing today. Now, the M8 also has the best sounding speaker system of any phone, with front-facing HTC BoomSound stereo speakers. So although we do have other phones with stereo front-facing speakers, these are by far the best. Now, personally, I prefer the stock Android experience, especially since it preserves many of the outstanding software tweaks of the standard M8. So for me, it's really the best of both worlds. Now, this phone really only comes up short on the camera, which is probably why this phone does not rank higher on my list. Now, the ultra-pixel camera is effectively 4 megapixels, which is just far too little resolution to work with nowadays. Now, that ultra-pixel camera is supposed to give you better low-light performance, and it does, but newer cameras are now using optical image stabilization and more powerful image processing software and hardware to give you even better results, despite having much higher resolution to work with and smaller pixels. So in the end, the HTC One M8 is a solid phone that is just a little dated next to the newer competition, which has evolved quickly. For number 5, I've chosen the Sony Xperia Z3, which stands out for a number of reasons, including an incredibly bright and vibrant 5.2-inch triluminous LCD display, which combines the brightness of an LCD panel with the color vibrancy of an OLED. Now, the Z3 also has a stunning 20.7 megapixel camera with outstanding software stabilization and 4K video with one of the best camera interfaces on any phone. It's also made beautifully with an all-glass and metal design, which is thin and compact, and it's the only water-resistant phone on my list, which unfortunately means we have to deal with the inconvenience of watertight flaps covering some of the ports and slots. And like some of the other great phones on this list, we have a set of front-facing stereo speakers. Overall, the Z3 brings outstanding design, hardware, and cameras to the table with a fairly lightweight and attractive Android skin. Its only weakness is battery life, especially if you use the screen at maximum brightness, but its many other strengths make it one of my favorites of the year. For number 4, I've chosen the LG G3, which is one of the first phones this year to launch with a QHD display, and it does so in a very compact and lightweight form factor with very thin bezels. This phone is a good example of why screen size is not fully indicative of phone size, because the G3 is actually more compact than any other 5.5-inch phone on the market and is almost as compact as smaller screen devices like the Galaxy S5. Now, the G3 also has an outstanding camera system with a 13 megapixel camera with optical image stabilization, 4K video recording, a dual tone LED flash, and a laser AF system. So with laser assisted autofocusing, the G3 can find focus quickly and accurately in all lighting conditions. I'm also a huge fan of the placement of the controls on the back of the phone, which I find much easier to operate than the side-mounted switches on most phones today. The G3 also has one of the best and most cohesive looking Android skins, which operates smoothly and gives us plenty of customization options with some interesting new features. Now, its only real weakness is the all-plastic housing in a world where many of these flagship phones are using metal construction. And then we have a rear-facing speaker which is loud but inferior to the front-facing stereo speakers on many of the flagship phones today. But overall, this phone did the most to advance hardware design and features this year. For number 3, I've chosen the Samsung Galaxy Note 4. This is by far Samsung's best phone of the year and clear evidence that Samsung knows how to make some of the best hardware on the market. Now, the Note 4 has one of the best displays on any phone today, with a large 5.7-inch QHD Super AMOLED display, which is now much more color accurate with clearer whites and deeper blacks. We also have one of the best cameras on any phone, with a 16-megapixel sensor featuring optical image stabilization and the best 4K video recording of any phone I reviewed this year. We also have a much improved design with a metal frame, which doesn't make it the best looking phone on the market, but does go a long way to create a sense of rigidity and quality to the Samsung line. It's also the only phone in my top 3 that has a user replaceable battery and upgradable storage. Now, speaking of the battery, this is also one of the phone's greatest strengths. And of course, the phone is packed with software and hardware features that make use of the large display and built-in stylus. Now, the Note 4 is only let down by its poor speaker quality and its heavy-handed TouchWiz software design, which does prevent the phone from running as smoothly as other phones running closer to stock. But in the end, even if you never use the stylus or many of the software features, the Note 4 is an outstanding phone with an excellent display, camera, and battery. For my second phone, I've chosen the Motorola Nexus 6, which is effectively the newest phone of 2014. Now, the Nexus 6 brings us the largest display in my top 7, with a 5.96-inch QHD Super AMOLED panel. We also have a 13 megapixel camera with optical image stabilization with 4K video recording, along with loud front-facing stereo speakers. We also have top-tier internal specs with a large battery, which delivers pretty good battery life, and you have a rapid turbocharger, which is lifted from other Motorola products launched this year. The Nexus 6 also benefits from the excellent build quality of the Moto X design upon which this phone is based, with that nice metal frame. Now, it's not the perfect hardware. The display is a little dim and a little pink, kind of off color compared to the Note 4. The camera overexposes and the battery life isn't the best, but ultimately the hardware is solid enough to service my favorite aspect of this phone, which is the software experience. Now, we're running Android 5.0 or Lollipop in stock form. Now, this is my favorite mobile operating system this year, with a combination of clever features, smart looking design that operates smoothly, quickly, and intuitively. Android is at its best when it's stock, and the Nexus 6 is your best option right now. And lastly, my favorite phone of the year is the iPhone 6 Plus, which finally brings us a larger 5.5-inch full HD display, full 1080p, which is the highest resolution and sharpest iPhone display yet at 401 pixels per inch. Now, it's by far the best looking LCD display on my list, with accurate color reproduction and deeper blacks. Now, it's not as vibrant as an AMOLED display with those inky blacks, but it's much brighter with clearer whites, and with better outdoor visibility thanks to that bright LCD panel. Now, the iPhone 6 Plus also has my favorite camera on any of the phones this year, and it's the only iPhone to feature optical image stabilization. Although only 8 megapixels, this camera works excellent in all lighting conditions with fast autofocus thanks to focus pixels and a powerful image signal processor built into the new A8 chip. Video is just as excellent with seamless and quick autofocus combined with software and optical image stabilization. This is the most foolproof camera on the list, with a simple camera interface with great automatic results. It's also the thinnest phone here, with an all aluminum design with that curved glass edge, which creates a nice continuous surface, which makes the phone feel really nice in the hand. It doesn't feel as big as you would think. And we have excellent battery life, which is the first time I can say that about any iPhone. Now, there are some nitpicks here. So for example, we have a protruding camera, which a lot of people don't like. This is a first for an iPhone. We also have those antenna stripes on the back, which is not a popular design choice by a lot of people. But again, it's a super thin phone made mostly out of metal, and to me it feels really nice, although it may not look as good as some iPhones in the past. Now, there are 3 important phones that I left off the list: the iPhone 6, the Moto X, and the Galaxy S5. And that's because there are larger, more premium versions of those phones on my list. So the iPhone 6 Plus has a larger, higher resolution display than the iPhone 6 with optical image stabilization and a larger battery for better battery life. The Nexus 6 has a larger QHD display, which is better quality than the one on the Moto X, with a better camera, which includes optical image stabilization with front-facing stereo speakers. And then we have the Note 4, which again has a larger display with QHD resolution over the 1080p GS5, along with a better camera and just better build quality. Another standout phone for the year was the Galaxy Note Edge, which I really liked, although it did have some shortcomings, including a weaker battery life and a dimmer display next to its Note 4 cousin. But the Note Edge brings a really interesting design that I think a lot of people are overlooking as a gimmick, but I think really enhances the usability of large handsets like the Note 4. Now, most of these are expensive flagship phones, except for the OnePlus One, which is priced like a budget phone. But if you're really looking for a great budget phone, there was one that really stands out, and that is the Moto G. So the Moto G retails for $179 off contract, and that gets you a large 5-inch 720p display with an 8-megapixel camera and front-facing stereo speakers. So definitely a solid phone, and perhaps the best budget phone on the market today, and the one I recommend to most people who ask for a budget-minded phone. Now, another standout phone for 2014 is the BlackBerry Passport. Now, while it's not one of my favorite phones of the year by any means, the BlackBerry Passport really shows off that BlackBerry can adapt and do something interesting while preserving its roots. With this very interesting form factor, it's a large display device with a full QWERTY keyboard. It's definitely unusual, definitely stood out, and a lot of people are big fans of it. Now, it's one of the best built phones I've reviewed this year, and the software story here is very interesting, but we're going to have to wait for that in my full review. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this look at my top phones of 2014. Of course, this is entirely my opinion, but what I want to know from you guys is, what is your favorite top phone of 2014? Please let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching. I'll see you again in the next video.